Hi everybody and welcome to episode 3 of Autism Journeys. I'm Anne-Marie Lewis and I'm joined here in the studio with my co-host Sharon McCarthy.
Hi everyone.
And I've seen all over the internet yet again, Sharon, people are signing the Autism Bill 2017 and then saying stand with, for example, Anne-Marie Lewis, join in and sign the petition. Why is this making you so angry?
Oh, Anne-Marie, I'm so frustrated. There's been huge support for the Autism Bill in the last few months, and there's huge excitement rising at the prospect of something concrete in law to protect the rights of individuals with autism. The reason I'm so frustrated is because the language used throughout this whole piece of legislation is in fact very non-committal. When you look at it, you see statements like the needs of the person should be met, that'd be in section 3.1a, or the wishes of the person with autism spectrum disorder be taken into account insofar as possible, section 3.1d. Now, it all sounds great. Unfortunately, should does not place any legal obligation on a government to fund or enforce that needs are met, nor does, insofar as possible, guarantee that an autistic person's wishes are taken account of. The language is absolutely non-committal. Now, if on the other hand it's stated must or always, our autistic population's rights would be protected then. I think that the language needs to be changed before this bill is passed and written into law. I know.
Why is everybody falling for it and signing? Is it because they're not actually reading it thoroughly, or they're just so excited at the glimpse of hope?
I think people are really, really excited about this. I think that people are very enthusiastic because finally there is something acknowledging autism in law. Unfortunately, this is going to be the go-to piece of legislation for many, many, many years to come. So if it's not worded properly and ensuring that the rights of our autistic population's needs are met, it's going to totally fail our autistic populations.
So people need to go back, read more thoroughly.
Exactly. And where you see the words should, insofar as possible, should have access to, those kind of statements, they are non-committal and they don't allow, they don't guarantee any rights are met. Now, I know, Anne-Marie, we're stuck for time, so that's all we have time for to cover this week, but we will definitely return to it again next week. I'd like to welcome our first guest, Karen O'Mahony, to the show this evening. Good evening, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Karen. Listen, thanks very much for agreeing to come on the show. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. I know that you're well known in the autism community with regards to the Rainbow Club and that. I'm just going to ask you first of all about your own experiences. Can I ask you, Karen, when did you first become aware of autism as a diagnosis, or?
I actually, we when we had our son Sean diagnosed, we didn't have any idea of what autism was. We had no family members or anyone that we knew that had any idea of autism, and we had to go and research once we got Sean's diagnosis. We had to go and research and find out more about it, and then from there we really did a lot of I suppose like searching and trying to find people that could give us lots of information. And then we then in turn then went to our families and kind of made them more aware of autism itself, and with Sean with his diagnosis and what we were going to be facing with him.
Okay, Karen, can I ask first of all, what age was Sean when he was diagnosed?
He was 5.
He was 5. So was he in school at that stage, or was he?
He was just after starting junior infant in September. And we had the assessment of need the previous October. So he had his diagnosis then in January. So he was only 4 months in school when he had his diagnosis.
Okay. Can I ask you, Karen, when did you first flag that there was something going on with Sean? When did you first note those challenging behaviours or difference, or?
Yeah, he was always a very happy, smiley little boy, but he was always very he would get emotional very, very quickly. He would cry for no reason really. He, when he wasn't okay, it would be days of him not being okay, and a lot of people would have put it down that, it might have been teething, or it could have just been the fact that he didn't sleep, that he was just very active. But we knew that he didn't take naps during the day and he didn't need a lot of sleep at night time. That was really the kind of the small little things that we would have noticed. And then it was the preschool, the Montessori that he was going to. They spoke with us and they kind of related a lot to what we were I suppose concerned with, and then they asked us about the assessment of need, and we sent it off then just to see.
Okay, so Karen, Sean was actually verbal, so because many of the parents that we speak to talk about children that are non-verbal, that are not sharing interest, that are not pointing, that are not gesturing. Sean obviously hit all of those milestones.
Well, no, he was talking, but he did a lot of solitary play, and he didn't understand, and it was time to finish, and we had to leave or waiting. There was all of those things were huge difficulty for him, but he couldn't explain to us, even though he was verbal. He didn't have the skills to really explain to us what was going on, and he didn't know what was going on or the situations that we would be in. A lot of the time when I'd go out, he would get really distressed at going out or when we were out, but he couldn't tell us exactly what was wrong. So it was hard to understand him and to try to figure out what was going on. And the preschool that he went to, my nephew, they're the same age, they were at the same preschool, and my nephew was doing things a lot more. He was doing a lot more stuff, and he was a lot more social than what Sean was. So we were concerned that there was a lot of this going on, and we didn't know what the problem was,
Okay, I suppose I feel very happy actually that Sean was diagnosed when he was, because often it is the case that a child, when they are verbal and when they are speaking, that it can be much later that a diagnosis is given. It's assumed that they're just a shy little child, or that. Yeah. Do you know that? I suppose, can I ask you, Karen, with regards to Sean's diagnosis, did Sean's diagnosis then make it easier for you to identify some autism traits in your younger son, Stephen?
Yeah, our knowledge of autism had broadened a lot at that stage. So it wasn't that we were looking for things to be wrong with Stephen, but we were a lot more aware. I suppose the first thing that we really was that Stephen was a bum shuffler. He didn't do crawling. The eye contact wasn't there. He couldn't hold his spoon. He would be with his bottle. He wouldn't be able to hold it great and stuff. So it made us a lot more aware. And I suppose for us, because we had a lot of awareness at that stage and a bit more knowledge about autism, we were able to get in there early with the interventions then with Stephen.
Yeah, and I suppose it's good to mention those difficulties with fine motor skills and those kind of weak muscle tone and those kind of physical symptoms that can actually be attributed to autism that lots of people aren't aware of.
Exactly, the balance. He would often trip, he would fall over. He didn't sleep. He was very bad for sleeping. He would just be, he wouldn't be in bad form, but he would not need naps, and he wouldn't take naps. His feeding was very all over the place. We couldn't get him on a proper solid foods because he textures and stuff. He gag and he throw up, and so there was a lot of that stuff. But the eye contact, and he was very obsessed with certain stuff, channels and certain shows, toys, and again the social aspect. He would really get very distressed in social environments and stuff. So we could see a lot more of it with Stephen.
Okay. Was he diagnosed younger in that case, Karen?
Well, I suppose because Sean was already had a diagnosis when the assessment of need went in for Stephen, we were seeing a lot faster, and we did get a diagnosis a lot earlier for Stephen. He was 3 and a bit. So it wasn't as late as it was with Sean. But again, we had a lot more awareness in the family ourselves. Yeah. And I suppose we were in there much quicker.
I know what you mean. No, that sounds. It's very positive, I suppose, that both Sean and Stephen were diagnosed young, particularly Stephen, because that early intervention can be so beneficial to a child with autism. I'm going to go on a different route, Karen. I'm going to ask you about your experience of the Irish education system, and I suppose what your feelings are on the supports that our children receive in the Irish education system. I'm aware that one of your children is in school and that the other is being home tutored at the moment. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Sean started in mainstream school. He was in Beaumont Boys, and it was a mainstream class, and it became very overwhelming for him, so he was moved to a unit. He was in, obviously it was out of the area, so it was a transport, they were trying to get us to do transport and stuff, but at the time he had huge anxiety and we had a lot of emotional stuff going on with him. So he was placed in the unit, and within months the unit broke down. They couldn't support his anxiety and his emotional needs around his autism. So Sean came out of school the October, and he's been out of school now. He would have been in first class, I suppose. Yeah, he missed the start of first class, and he's been out of school since. So he should be now going into sixth class in September. He's had home tuition with the hope over the last few years that he could transition into a unit, but that hasn't happened because both Stephen and Sean had very complex anxiety within their autism, and it has impacted them socially and out in our family lives, more so for Sean than for Stephen. So Stephen has had Sean has had a home tutor. We applied for the home tuition at the start, and we got there 20 hours. But Sean, unfortunately, we could only access 5 hours last year, which was really
minimal.
And we were really disgusted with the fact that he got 5 hours, because this is a child that we're trying to transition back into a school or into a secondary school, and we feel that for him he should be getting at least 10 hours at 11. He's 11 years of age now. Even if we could get 10 hours, I mean, it should, obviously, we would hope for 20 to transition him back into. It doesn't make sense for us for him to now have 5 hours and then to put him into school for a full day, especially around his anxiety. So, I think the system is not working. I don't think it's not sufficient for a lot of our children and their difficulties. I think it's the fact that they have the one program for all children. It's not working, because none of our children are the same. There's no two children with autism the same, so their needs are different. And the system is not flexing for that. So it's disappointing. All right.
No. I suppose it's very, very frustrating when you're hitting that kind of a wall with your young man. Can I ask you, Karen, with regards to the home tutor, has Sean accessed the same home tutor for the duration of the home tuition, or has that changed, and has he managed those little changes if it has?
Yeah, well, he had one tutor the first year, then he had the same tutor for 2 years, and she was fantastic. She left us last June because she was going back into the work placement in teaching, but she had done an academic program, everything with Sean, and she was working in conjunction with the school that we were hoping to transition him into, so that he was on the same program academically as his peers. And Sean is very bright, but again, the anxiety impacts him in a huge way. So this year we will probably have to have a different tutor, and he will work with the psychologist and the OT to try and help him with that change. He is a bit older, and we have done lots of work over the last few years with him, especially this last 12 months, in helping Sean to recognise his emotions and where he is in his life, I suppose. And he always explains, he tries to explain to us that his autism is another part of him. And when the talking about his autism has happened a lot more in the last 12 months.
Great.
But he still has a long way to go. He doesn't have the skills to recognise the emotions or to recognise a lot about his autism. So the plan for the next 12 months will be that we really put a lot of work into helping him to be able to get back into the education system and to be around teenagers his own age and be able to interact with his peers, you know.
Yeah, I suppose the one thing I note from all that, Karen, as well, is that I know he's got huge anxiety issues and that he's somewhat isolated from his peers at the moment. But one positive in all that is that he is attempting to discuss how his autism affects him, and like that he's open to his diagnosis, full stop, is a great starting point. It's a great stepping stone to kind of getting to teaching him those emotive skills and sharing and those social skills and whatever. Can I ask you, Karen? I'm aware that we're under a little bit of pressure for time, but I do want to speak about the Rainbow Club. But I just want to ask you one final question about Sean before I move on to that. With regards to Sean and his anxiety, are there any specific anxiety supports that he has accessed in the last few years that you have found beneficial that perhaps other parents might be interested to know about to try themselves?
I suppose we did a lot. We've worked with a new psychologist, and he's just somebody that Sean has clicked with. The thing with Sean was that all the other stuff that they were trying to, I suppose, like schools and teams and they were all trying to do stuff that was kind of by the book, but they weren't really looking at Sean and his anxiety and the overwhelming impact it had on his life. And I suppose for us as a family, trying to support him through that, we took everything back to basics from the start, and we started with the visuals and helping him each day to be able to I suppose, like open up a little bit more, but being very conscious of his anxiety. So the one thing I would say to parents is that it's not the same for all children, and that we felt that we had to really shout loud about Sean's needs and how his needs were different, and that they were unique for him, and that we weren't willing to allow anyone to push him into a situation that he wasn't able for at the time. And we feel that at this stage, because we did pull back on everybody else making the decisions for him, that we were coming at it as we were looking after him and his anxiety, that he is actually now in a better place, and he will be able to do better, that we've allowed him to catch up with us as such, you know, helping him to be able to get to where he is without being pushed into a direction that he wasn't able to manage.
So basically what you're saying, Karen, is that it's very important that he connects with the therapist. It's very important to look at the individual effect his anxiety has on his life.
And the family unit as well, Sharon. I mean, the family unit has to be the one that gives him that support. He has to have somewhere that he can feel safe and he can trust, and he knows that we have, you know, a lot of his needs helped. And that when you go out and about, that he knows that he has somebody, that we get it and we know, and that he has that safe place to come back to, or that he has a safe place that he can be, and that we can help him to help other people understand him.
And I suppose that he can drop the people face that he perhaps puts on throughout the day.
Yeah.
Karen, I'm going to move us along, and I'm going to just ask you about the Rainbow Club. Everybody, it's a very, very big talking point amongst, like, in the autism community. I was going to ask you what your reason for setting up the Rainbow Club was, but I'm assuming that your two little boys were your inspiration for doing that, the lack of service or support that was available to them. Would that be correct?
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose the fact that we as a family, when we were diagnosed with Sean, it was a very lonely place. Everybody that has a diagnosis, they'll tell you it feels like a grief, and you know all of the dreams and stuff that you had for your children are gone, and it's a support network, and we wanted a support network that would be there, that families wouldn't go through what we went through, and that in the broader spectrum that it rose a lot of awareness so that people could access information from each other, and that parents could learn from each other, because the parents are the ones that have all of the information. Our children you will not learn I suppose we won't know about our children in books. You'll hear the basic stuff, but we all know our children.
And those individual
Exactly. And sharing that information gives a lot of newly diagnosed parents a safe haven that they can come and they can talk to somebody and they can have their children socialise. And that's what the club is. And we're very, very proud of the club. it's come on. It's a fantastic place for the families. It's a fantastic place for the children. It's a fantastic place for us. All of the volunteers that are there are amazing. It's a beautiful place, and not because we started, but because of everybody that's involved there. It's a beautiful family, just of its own, you know.
Good. Can I ask you, Karen, I know that your number exceeds 200 now at this stage for people that are accessing supports. I suppose, first of all, what kind of supports do you offer, we'd say, your clients? And second of all, for people that are looking to access yourselves, is the waiting list long, and how would people get in touch with yourself?
Okay, so we have 296 children attend club every week. It's a voluntary run club. We have 3 rooms. Everything we do is fundraising. We have 161 families on a list waiting to come in. We're all of the time adding more volunteers. There's more going through vetting. We run social groups. We run teen boys and teen girls. We have a music program. We do sports on Saturdays. We run events and we run family days. We do trips with the children. We do an AC Santa. We have parties then during the year that bring families together. We run the ASD friendly play with Chuckies. We have a speech and language therapist. We have an OT. We have play therapists. We have art therapists. And again, it's all under the one umbrella of the club. Even families that are waiting to start a club, we start them in other stuff while they're waiting to get their children into social groups.
So you really have everything. You've everything on board. It's so comprehensive.
Everything that we felt that the families needed. And our hope is September we have a psychologist coming on, and we have another play therapist coming in as well, because we want to obviously broaden. Our sports program is going to go into some more small groups as well, and we have confidence kids that come in and do the speech and drama. So we're all the time trying to expand and give our children the opportunity
to realise their potential, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
Karen, I'm really aware of time. I could listen to you for hours. You're so knowledgeable and so capable and such an inspiration setting up this thing and supplying so many people with so many supports. I've got one final question for you, Karen. I was delighted a couple of months ago when I saw that you had received an award, Cork Person of the Month. All I can say is congratulations, well done, well deserved. Do you want to tell us very quickly just a little bit about that? Before we finish up?
I think it was some parents that had nominated me, and it was beautiful, absolutely. It was just such an honour. The day itself was a gorgeous day. It was an afternoon meal. The trophy sits here very proudly. I'm really, really proud of it. The awards that we've gotten along the way, I suppose that one is a very personal one to me. I was I was blown away by it, and it was lovely. It was just a lovely thing to receive. We don't do this. Myself and John started this because of our boys and because of our life with autism. It wasn't to receive trophies and to receive, it wasn't for that, but it was absolutely such an amazing thing to get.
It just goes to show, Karen, I know you're saying that it isn't about receiving or anything like that, but it actually goes to show as to how positive and how wonderful your husband and your family's impact have been on so many more people in this area. It's something that you should be absolutely so proud of. I've no doubt that your husband and your children are so proud of you and so glad to have you as part of their family support. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and anybody I speak to talks about how wonderful and how amazing the club is, and I really do think that onwards and upwards from here, and hopefully in time to come we see it expanding to new and greater levels.
Bigger things. Thank you, Sharon.
Karen, can I ask you one last question? Is there a number that people can contact or an email that people can email you if they want to put their child on the list?
We have our Rainbow Club page. It's Rainbow Club Cork. My own page is Karen O'Mahony. They can friend me. We have the phone number is 086 08 05 810. and the emails. There's lots of leaflets that are going around at the moment. There's some being sent out to a load of the schools. We had to get a new leaflet done up for parents. And anybody that is a friend of Rainbow Club, any parent that wants to contact us, they can get me on the Rainbow page, they can get me on the Karen O'Mahony page, or any other mums, they can send them through to me on karen.dennehy@yahoo.com.
Karen, you're an absolute inspiration. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak. I'll talk to you again. Take care, Karen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. And now I'd like to welcome Lenore Goode, mum of 5 and writer on the popular blog Staying Alive with 5. Hi Lenore, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Lenore, I suppose we better get started. Can I ask you first of all, before Bodhi, had you ever encountered autism before?
Just with a friend of mine whose older child had it, but other than that I wouldn't have really had any kind of interaction with it or knew much about it.
Okay. What kind of behaviours or challenges did Bodhi present with initially? Was it, did he lose the language skills that he had acquired, or was he always non-verbal, or...?
He had hearing loss since birth, so we originally thought that the delays were down to that, and then when he was kind of maybe about 18 months, kind of a lot of screaming started. He had a few words, he kind of lost those before the age of 2, but up until then we always presumed it was the hearing loss until I kind of went further about it.
Okay. When you went about diagnosis, did you go about diagnosis publicly initially, or did you immediately go down a private route, or... did you do both, perhaps?
I did both. I self-referred him to a speech-language therapist, and she actually picked up on something other than the speech-language difficulties. We applied for assessment of needs, and then I met with Shine last November, and they kind of recommended I go about getting a private diagnosis to open the kind of home tuition access for us. And we were still waiting for the public diagnosis, and we got that this year in May when he was just 3.
I have a 2-pronged question for you, Lenore. How long did the diagnostic process take, and has your acquiring of a public diagnosis made pathways for Bodhi to services any easier?
Well, we applied for assessment of needs when Bodhi was 2, so that was June 2016. November 2016 I made a complaint as the 3 months were up. Basically, I was told that it would be a 5-month delay because of due to the kind of process of the, of applications at the time, the volume. Kind of after Christmas, then we got the private diagnosis. When we got the private diagnosis, I realised that a lot of places weren't accepting that. They were looking for a HSC one. So the only thing that had helped us with really was home tuition, which was great, but that took us another 3 months to get into place. So basically I found that I was really stuck and Bodhi was getting worse, and I really didn't have the time to waste, around with it. I was ringing, I was emailing, I was shouting. I'd say there was a bloody bell or a neon sign going off in all offices when my number came up, but I didn't care because I needed to get him into a school. I needed something in place. Everywhere I was applying for wasn't accepting what I had.
Yeah.
Gareth Noble, he's a human rights civil law solicitor in Dublin. He actually reached out and he fought on Bodhi's behalf to get the assessment of needs application done because they were violating their
civil rights.
Exactly. So in April, he contacted me to say that he had given the HSC 2 weeks to complete the HSC public diagnosis. So thanks to him, we got Marion House to come down, and they did their multi-D assessment at home with Bodhi in May. And we had a report then shortly after, and that has helped me try and secure my place in school. But obviously we missed the deadline with schools because we went into May. So this is why we're kind of waiting now to see if we will get a place with Shine. But I do strongly believe if it wasn't for Gareth Noble, I'd still be waiting.
Okay. So you feel, Lenore, that the public or the private diagnosis only got you so far, and that most places still expect that multidisciplinary diagnosis from public teams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, it's like the golden halo. They need it by the HSE. They need more than one person to tell you that your child has autism.
Okay.
That's the way they're looking at it.
Okay, so this process took you approximately 10 months from start to finish, and that was with Gareth Noble's intervention.
With it, otherwise I'd still be here, and I don't know where we'd be. It's been a very, very tough couple of years for him because of his hearing. It's not just the autism. We've two things to take into consideration here as well with him. He's had operations and he can't verbalise things with us. He's sensory issues, so there's more than just the autism going on. And I just find, with Gareth's help, we were very lucky. And I know he's helping a lot of other families, and I just totally kind of blown away by how fast they did it with his kind of stepping in for Bodhi.
Good. Well, we're hoping to have him on a future
show
if he agrees to it. Okay. And did he access the home tuition previously to the public diagnosis?
Yeah. That was the private diagnosis. They accepted that, so we got that started in March.
Great. I suppose moving forward now, will Bodhi access a home tuition again this year? Are you looking at school placement, or?
I am keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that we get a place with Shine, because he was offered a place there, which would be brilliant because it's only 5 minutes up the road. But as with everything, you have big challenges and hoops and hurdles to kind of jump through. We're kind of still waiting to see what's happening with that at the moment.
Okay, and have you been offered any other places, or?
No, maybe 7 to 8 other schools kind of didn't have anything available for him.
Can I ask you, Lenore, on your journey so far, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you've had to face into and overcome?
I suppose not knowing anything about autism, not knowing other families with it, not knowing what it was. With his age, of 2, it's trying to differentiate what a meltdown is. Is it a temper tantrum? Is it, a normal, typical 2-year-old behaviour? And then it's trying to be a mum to 4 other kids who don't have autism as well, it's just trying to be a different parent to 5 kids, I think, is the biggest thing at the moment.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Lenore, is that why you were prompted to write your blog? Was it in order to raise awareness? Was it as a release? Was it a cathartic method for you?
I always say if I didn't have the blog, I'd be like kind of Shirley Valentine had a wall, because I just find it very therapeutic. I think as a mom with the kid with autism, it can be very isolating. So I also kind of used to just, before even Bodhi was born, the kids are very funny and they have very funny ways of coming out with things, and I used to just talk about them kind of to my friends or write it on my own Facebook page, and people used to always say you should start a blog or you should write a book. And it was kind of only then kind of went after he got his diagnosis that I kind of thought more about it. So it's not even really just about Bodhi, it's about being a mum to 5 kids as well, and it's kind of the chaos that kind of comes with all of that.
I completely relate. 6 children, yeah. I completely relate. Is there anything else you do as a mom to mind yourself? Is there any set time that you allow yourself outside of writing in the blog?
Not really, but it's something that I'm trying to get better at. My husband works long hours, he does shift work, so when he's here, I might get the opportunity to go out and meet a friend, or, even go and get your hair blow dried, or, Jesus, even getting your eyebrows waxed is a treat, or going to Dunn's on your own is another day out. But other than that, I keep telling myself when he starts school and he gets into a routine and he's outside of the house, that I'll be able to kind of find my own kind of thing again.
Okay, can I ask you, Lenore, I know that the last time I spoke to you, your home tutor had just finished up and you were anticipating difficulty, I suppose, during the coming weeks. Has Bodhi started to settle into that new routine now of not having the home tutor coming every day?
Not really. He is learning, but I kind of felt it was very bittersweet when she finished up, because he didn't realise that was the last time or the last day, whereas we did. And then he can't verbalise, asking me where she is, and they did have a good routine from, in the morning time to lunchtime, where he kind of sat with her and he did his stuff. And in his own way now, he might go looking for things that he did with her.
Okay.
And that'll be my kind of cue to write, this is what he wants to do. And he has been kind of a very kind of frustrated and agitated the last week. And I find that I'm picking up on his cues better.
Good.
So I suppose it's kind of another learning thing for me,
Yeah. I suppose he's pre-verbal, am I correct?
Yeah. He was non-verbal up until last year, and then kind of we started the hippotherapy and the home tutor they kind of went hand in hand last March, and the words started emerging then.
Yeah.
Like he's still pre-verbal, he wouldn't be able to have sentences or whatever, but he has his few words.
Good. So he's moving forward,
exactly,
he's progressing. I hear you talking about hippotherapy there.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me exactly what that is? Because it's something that very few people know about.
It is basically occupational therapy on the horse. People think it's horse riding. It's not horse riding. They get the child to do different movements and sit in different positions while on the horse. So basically, for every footfall that the horse does, it sends 100 movements back up through the body, and it kind of gets the jaw moving. So it might encourage a child to chew more. It's a sensory thing. It gets them just to move the jaw. So it might encourage, drooling, or in our case, Bodhi started speaking. It can do that. It can do this for kids. It can start with noise if some kids are mute, because I've seen another child that shares a session with Bodhi, this happened for them. But in our case, he started talking. And at the moment as well, there's a speech language therapist actually joins in the session and walks around with them.
Fab.
But it's something that he looks forward to every week. And, it's not something that he went very kind of easily into. It took us 3 or 4 sessions. He kind of resisted it up to the 4th session. When Bodhi's very anxious, he can get sick, and he actually was sick up there. But again, the girls were really understanding. They said that actually happened before, and it's just something that I have no problem in putting money into, because I can see the benefits for him.
Yeah. Did you find it difficult initially to persevere? Because I've no doubt the parents would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're questioning, like, am I doing it for him? Am I doing it for me? Is it worth it? Yeah. But I have kind of seen a pattern with Bodhi, that it'll take maybe 4 or 5 attempts of going somewhere for him to actually get used to it and enjoy it. Same with swimming, we started as well. Exact same kind of feedback, but I know I have to challenge him, because he is very stubborn as well.
So it's worth persevering for any parent whose child might become very anxious and might become physically sick or whatever. A couple of sessions you found definitely.
And I think obviously you have to look to, the tutor or the instructor, for their kind of feedback and encouragement. But, definitely I couldn't recommend that place, the Strides therapy, more.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Lenore. Can I ask you another question? I'm going to go back to yourself for a minute. How do you juggle life as a parent of a child with additional needs, and then 4 more lovely little girls as well?
I think you have to parent them individually. They all have different needs. The girls are very, aware of the fact that Bodhi needs extra attention and time. And, it can be hard for them to deal with sometimes. Actually, we were only talking about it the other day. The 3 older girls were sitting around the table and they were discussing their birthdays. Now, the birthdays aren't until September, January and April of next year. And I actually asked them why. I mean, the older is she's 15. I was actually asking them what the big deal was about the birthdays, and they were just saying it's the one day that it's about them completely.
Yeah.
So I would have taken the 15-year-old glamping with a couple of her friends last April. It was the highlight of her year. The 9-year-old, and I was looking forward, she's going to a Harry Potter convention in Dublin in September, and she's looking forward to that. But it's the one day that I kind of spoil them and make it all about them, and it's kind of a bit of our one-on-one time as well.
Fabulous. That sounds great. Lenore, is there anything that you, I suppose, is there any time that you find yourself watching your other children following Bodhi's diagnosis, or do you kind of feel that all is okay, or do you think that it's a natural instinct, I suppose, just to...
I think I definitely am more aware. I wouldn't have had a clue about autism before. I wouldn't have known any of the red flags. Obviously my youngest now, she's coming up to 1. I'd be watching out for her for little cues. It's just little things that I suppose another parent wouldn't be aware of. But not even with the baby, I would look even to the older girls, because I know with girls, it's the signs aren't as kind of obvious as with boys.
Yeah.
Boys are kind of more the developmental delays and the verbal delays, if there is any speech there at all. With girls, they don't seem to have the speech problem, and I think it kind of presents later on in years when they're in school, and it kind of comes through kind of the social thing with anxiety and stuff like that, which I wouldn't have had a clue about before.
Yeah.
So I'd be very aware of that now as well.
So you find yourself keeping an eye on all of your children.
Yeah.
I've heard of that a lot, where people sometimes are retrospectively diagnosed following a younger child's diagnosis in a family.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that it's very, very likely for another child to be diagnosed in the family following a diagnosis of a sibling.
And I suppose too, girls tend to wear masks almost. They tend to be fantastic performers.
Yeah.
They seem to be very good mimics, and they seem to be very good at watching what others are doing and copying them.
Yeah.
So I suppose that would be one of the reasons why girls that are verbal often are diagnosed later on.
Yeah, and I think I have 4 daughters. Bodhi's my only son as well, so I had a big thing with that because I was used to parenting girls.
Yeah.
So when Bodhi came along and we had all this kind of, the speech delay, the developmental delay, I didn't have anything to compare it to, other than the girls. And sure, that's, it's a different thing. Yes. I know each child is different, but I suppose, you just have to keep an eye on each milestone, not just them at, a small age.
Yeah. No, you're right. With regards to your openness with Bodhi's diagnosis, I know that you speak very openly about his diagnosis, and you share it very publicly on your blog. Do you believe that it's a good idea to share openly and publicly this kind of personal information? I know that others perhaps would be much quieter about their diagnosis, and they wouldn't tend to share it as openly.
Well, I think, each their own. I'm not going to try and tell somebody how to parent their child, but I suppose you could kind of even compare it to the breastfeeding dilemma. Everybody's going to have an opinion on that, but you have to follow your own instinct and do what's best for your child. So it's something that I deliberated for a long time about doing. I know a lot of people who have children with diagnosis who don't want people to know, and power to them, that's their thing, but this is my thing. And I feel that, like, I was even looking on the blog recently, and there's maybe an average of 2 parents a week sending me a message asking me for help or where they can go to or information because they have concerns about their own children. And I find even that alone is a huge thing. Who they ask otherwise.
Yeah,
it's a private way of them communicating. I'm not saying I know it all, because I don't. I'm still learning, but at least I can give them somewhere to go to or a number to ring.
Yeah,
or they can ask me something at 11 o'clock at night. And I can. It's confidential, and I'm not. It's not going to go any further.
Yeah.
So even that alone, I wish I had that when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I suppose it's good to know that you're paying it forward, and that hopefully those people in time to come will be in the same position to pay forward too.
The blog isn't all doom and gloom about autism. It's about celebrating his milestones and what he is doing and his progress, and it's giving other parents hope that maybe if their child isn't speaking, that it's not the way it's always going to be.
Yeah.
Like, I met a couple recently whose child is maybe a year ahead of us, and even talking to them was even a relief to my husband, because he was able to relate to the father. I always find it's one parent who kind of takes on the horse load of the work, the paperwork, and the other one would step back.
Yeah.
And even, that's a massive thing to know that the work that you're putting in is going to pay off.
Yeah.
But I think you have to obviously you have to go through day by day, and the days are long, especially if it's a day of meltdowns. But I mean, it's not always going to be like that, and I think that's important to keep in mind.
I know that I follow your blog, Lenore, and I suppose I know that you speak about autism and stuff, but actually I really enjoy the chaos that is the 5-child household.
Yeah.
I like the entirety of it, not just the autism stuff, but that just madness that comes with a large family. I suppose I like reading about children squirting toothpaste out all over the place. Or
even a mother got on to me recently, and she has a child with autism, and she was speaking to another mother, I don't know names, but she just said they were talking about it, so they just said that they enjoy the honesty of it, that they're able to be roaring laughing because they relate to it.
Exactly.
And that, I suppose, I call a spade, and that's just me. I don't hide anything, including Bodhi's autism, and that's just us. So you kind of either take it or leave it, I suppose.
Well, no, we'll take it. We'll take it. Thank you. Lenore, can I ask you one final question?
Yeah.
Is there anything at all that you think would be important for a parent starting out on their autism journey to know, looking back at yourself as a parent, is there something that you would have liked to have heard yourself as you had started out on your journey?
I suppose, again, touching on the fact that, it does get better. There are people out there that can help. There are places that you can ask for help. And I think I like to look at the blog even as a little community of support.
Yeah.
I even find that, groups can be cliquey, especially if they are parents that are maybe in years, when you're starting off, you're afraid to ask questions. You are. And you're afraid as well to ask questions maybe in a group or a forum where it might come across as stupid or silly.
Yeah.
So I think don't be afraid to ask questions. And, if you are a bit nervous or, you want to keep it private, there's nothing wrong with that either. But, I would definitely still reach out for information, because I think timing is key and early intervention is crucial.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be waiting around. That's another thing I found as well. I'm glad that we started the assessment of needs when we did, because, it is a long road. But, once you kind of get started, it is crucial, like the early intervention part.
Yeah. I suppose people find as they move on in their journey that perhaps their closest friends aren't the friends that they typically have. It is those friends that are on similar journeys to them, be them further ahead or behind them on that road. It still seems to be very much those type of friendships are very, very strong. Would you find that yourself? Yeah,
you do find yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with your friendships, but I suppose if you had 5 friends in front of you, you probably would go to each of them for different things.
Yeah.
And I find there's nothing wrong with having a new group of friends who are able to provide you support for what you're going through now.
Yeah.
Not to say there's anything wrong with friendships that can't do that for you.
Yeah.
But
I suppose it's nice to have somebody that you can feel like you're a normal parent in
absolutely.
amongst the chaos.
And that they understand
exactly.
the meltdown. They understand you can't leave the house. They understand you can't go to the birthday party, and there's no pressure on you for not.
Yeah, yeah. Lenore, listen, thanks an absolute million. You've been absolutely great. Thanks very much for talking to us this evening.
Thank you very much.
And here's Lenore's favourite song, Somewhere Beyond the Sea.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms